The Last Unicorn, an animated fantasy film that was a box office flop. However, over the years, it has gained quite the cult following. And it's weird. Like, really, really weird.
Oh, I love you.
Man, we got away with so much back in the day. I remember my little sister renting this movie from Blockbuster like all the time. It was either that or we're watching The Princess and the Goblin. That too was a really weird movie.
We lived above the ground.
Why was The Last Unicorn a box office failure, but is now seen as a cult classic? What stood out about this film to make it so enchanting that it could withstand the test of time? And how many children were scarred by this scene? Mommy, what's hanging off the bird monster? Ooh, how about we watch this other film instead? Wait, not that! This is genuinely a bizarre but very beautiful film. And if you haven't heard of it before, you're in for quite the treat. So let's check out The Last Unicorn.
What have you done?
Me? Just hanging around.
But wait! This video is brought to you by Vessi. Summertime means summer plans. That means lighter clothing and lighter colors to get you moving throughout the day. I wore a black t-shirt to the park. Bad call. That was a bad idea. I was cooking like a ham. The weather always changes when you least expect it, so while the world may have other plans, your shoes shouldn't. Which is why anyone looking to consolidate their wardrobe this summer should give Vessi a shot. They're one of the best players in the game when it comes to making shoes that are made for spontaneous plans and travel. One pair of Vessis that I cannot recommend enough is the Stormburst High Top. It's a badass name. I wear these shoes, no joke, every single day. Their pull tab and elastic collar makes it easy to slip them on and off whenever I need to step out of the house quickly. Oh, I need another ice cream cone. There goes the ice cream truck. Where are my Vessis? Something else I also love about Vessi shoes is that there's virtually no break-in period. Their weatherproof knitting stretches to your feet so that you can experience a comfortable fit immediately. Remembering my past experiences with new shoes makes me wish I had found Vessi sooner. It's like a bad ex, you know? Oh, if only I found you beforehand. They're some of the most sleek, comfortable, and best waterproof shoes I've ever owned. Dymatex technology is at the forefront of Vessi innovation. This cool feature keeps your shoes dry during spontaneous weather changes or whenever accidents happen. The toe cap also ensures that your toes won't be getting damp. I'm constantly wearing them, whether it's my routine walks in the morning with my dogs, my sessions at the boxing gym, or when I'm heading out to fulfill convention obligations. And trust me, with the way the humidity has been lately, you'll be happy you got a pair of shoes that can combat the worst that Mother Nature has to throw at you. Come on, Mother Nature, bring it on. Just one pair wherever you're headed. There's no need to sacrifice comfort, style, or functionality. That's all part of the Vessi philosophy. I don't change my plans no matter the weather, and neither should you. Make Vessis the shoes by your doorstep. Grab 15% off your Vessis at vessi.com/saberspark. Covered with free shipping, 1-year warranty, and 30-day hassle-free returns. Hit up my QR code on the screen to learn more. Thanks again to Vessi for sponsoring this video, and now back to the video. So what exactly is The Last Unicorn about? Buckle up, this one goes places. In an enchanted forest, a white unicorn overhears two men discussing how she's the only unicorn left in the world. Apparently, the rest of her kind have been banished to the sea by a treacherous creature known as the Red Bull. I know, we're all thinking it. Take a sip. She refuses to believe this at first, but quickly starts looking for answers. The unicorn slowly learns that humans have become completely disillusioned by magic and can't see her for what she is. In fact, the only people who can tell the difference are a handful of magical people. Some with pure-hearted intentions, and some who seek to exploit her. A witch named Mommy Fortuna, sounds like a VTuber's name, traps her during the night, as she wants the unicorn to be a showpiece in her carnival menagerie. Her assistant, Schmendrick, that's another interesting name, isn't exactly the best magician, but he has a good heart and believes that someday real magic will come back once again. Once he discovers the unicorn is the real deal, Schmendrick frees her from a magical cage, as they both rush to release the other creatures from Mommy Fortuna's control. Lady, I promise you, the money and bragging rights of controlling a magical beast, not worth it. And just like Gaston, she paid the ultimate price for it.
Set me free. We are sisters, you and I.
They escape the circus together as Schmendrick explains the Red Bull is owned by the aging King Haggard at his distant castle. Yo, shout out to my boy Christopher Lee. Rest in peace, goat. But on the edge of the kingdom, they run into some outlaws, led by Captain Carley and his wife, Molly Grew. After an admittedly pretty confusing illusion of Robin Hood gallivanting through the camp, Schmendrick is captured and tied to an enchanted tree. This is, an exceptionally busty enchanted tree that haunts my nightmares to this day.
Help! Unicorn, where are you?
For some people, they're like, hey, it's not a nightmare, that's a dream. Yeah, I have no words for what happened here. Thankfully, the unicorn shows up to rescue Schmendrick, and they never talk about it again because, yeah, nobody would believe him anyway. Back on their journey, Molly Grew follows them and is completely awestruck seeing a real-life unicorn for the first time. It blows her fucking mind.
How dare you? How dare you come to me now?
After regaining her composure, Molly joins them on the journey and guides them in the right direction. Now, I did not mention this before, but this movie really likes doing extended travel montages, specifically set to music by America the Band. Strangely enough, they don't use one of their most iconic songs, quote, "A Horse with No Name," even though the opportunity is right there. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting choice as far as music goes, but hey, I can dig it. The group stops on the outskirts of the castle, with the Red Bull finding and chasing down the unicorn. The bull corners her, but Schmendrick panics, saving her by accidentally turning the unicorn into a human woman. This scene is so funny because Molly here is like, what have you done? You made her human? It's like one of the greatest crimes against nature ever. The unicorn, now named Lady Amalthea, is disturbed by her new form along with the attention of King Haggard, the aging and isolated ruler of the castle. But she takes a shine to his dashing son, Prince Lear, which is fair. He is voiced by Jeff Bridges after all, and those sideburns are definitely working for him. Schmendrick replaces King Haggard's previous magician, touting himself as an entertainer, though Haggard admits nothing makes him happy outside of staring at the sea. Sounds ominous, but okay. As Lady Amalthea, the unicorn is struggling to maintain a sense of herself. By becoming human, she has lost her immortality as a magical creature. And the longer she stays in this human form, it causes her to forget her purpose. With limited time to spare, she wants to face the bull before she fully loses herself. The next day, King Haggard tells her the story of how the unicorns were captured by the Red Bull. And it turns out that the Red Bull is King Haggard's minion. He demanded the Red Bull capture all the unicorns because he's weirdly obsessed. Lady Amalthea, Molly, and Schmendrick explore the castle, looking for a way to find the Red Bull. But they're stopped by a skeleton with a drinking problem, and just go with it, who refuses to show them the way unless they give him some wine. Hey, brother, I've been there. I've not as a skeleton. Well, not yet.
Try me tomorrow. Maybe I'll tell you tomorrow.
They find a secret passage through a clock, but the skeleton alerts King Haggard, who is suddenly hot on their trail. Their only way to survive is going all the way, facing off with the Red Bull once and for all. During their battle, Schmendrick harnesses his magic to turn her back into a unicorn. A giant wave emerges from the sea, taking the bull under the tide, with the other unicorns escaping from the sea and back onto land. The castle crumbles into the sea, with King Haggard falling in after it. The last unicorn heals the prince and watches him from afar. She reluctantly but gradually accepts her identity restored as a unicorn and runs away to finally be free, being brave enough to face mortality and restoring hope for all by protecting the other unicorns. She will continue to live in a world that has changed her, but for the better.
Unicorns are in the world again. No sorrow will live in me as long as that joy
The Last Unicorn is a tragic and beautiful tale that represents hope, humanity, love, and loss in a world riddled with cruelty, loneliness, and despair. While the story itself is enchanting and somber, the visual design and the music written for the production are truly what make this movie such a standout piece for its time. However, just because this dark fairy tale eventually got a happy ending doesn't mean this film's creation was a rosy experience for everyone, because, it wasn't.
But do not mock me.
Now, any established author will tell you that the film adaptation process can be a living hell. Many things can and will be cut or modified for the sake of time to fit the pacing for a movie. And those changes may veer away somewhat from the vision of the author, or go completely off the rails. Do better, The Hobbit trilogy. I'm looking at you. As a book, The Last Unicorn was originally published on March 1st, 1968, and remains a popular and beloved fantasy novel by American author Peter S. Beagle. But he's the first person to admit how difficult writing The Last Unicorn turned out to be. Inspiration first struck Peter when he was 17, after he was given a painting featuring unicorns fighting bulls. Beagle started writing the book in his early 20s, and only got about 85 pages into the first version of it before abandoning the project. But after 2 years, his then wife compelled him to give it another shot, as she wanted to hear how the story ended. He did, and revisiting it paid off in a big way. The Last Unicorn rapidly became a fantasy classic, selling over 6 million copies and being released in more than 25 languages worldwide. Shortly thereafter, buzz started happening around optioning the novel into a film. Beagle only saw it happening as an animated film, as live action wouldn't translate as well to the story. Yeah, I can't argue with you there. That would have been a nightmare to pull off, considering the amount of fantasy creatures and makeup involved. Offers came and went. He turned down development offers from Lee Mendelsohn and Bal Melendez, the same folks behind animating the Peanuts cartoon specials. But things changed once Beagle was contacted by Michael Chase Walker, an energetic producer who loved the novel and was determined to see it made into a film. Walker even paid him the equivalent of $200,000 in today's money to secure the film's right for it from a previous buyer. Beagle had a very specific condition for getting it made, though. He wanted to write the screenplay to make sure it aligned as closely as possible to his novel. Now, this wasn't an out-of-pocket request. Beagle's first foray into making a screenplay involved working with Chris Conkling on the Ralph Bakshi-directed Lord of the Rings in 1978. Bakshi asked him to do a massive rewrite on the script that still honored the source material as much as they could. Beagle learned some lessons working on Lord of the Rings, though, like how to simplify script details for a visual medium to keep in time with the animation. Beagle and Walker had a plan and the concept art to back it up, but their problems would only grow from there. Given how dark the subject matter was, the duo had an incredibly rough time pitching it around Hollywood. Every major studio in town, from Disney to Warner Brothers, to smaller production houses in between, were not willing to make that kind of gamble on such a niche movie. At the time, the world economy was in a pretty rough spot due to the 1979 energy crisis, inflation, and high unemployment from 1980 to 82, which also included the United States. What's that whole thing about those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it? Now, there were a few smaller animated production outliers like Don Bluth and Ralph Bakshi, who would just go off and do their own thing. But most major studios were tightening their budgets to be as lean as possible. Their only hope of having the movie become a reality came from an extremely unlikely source: Rankin Bass. Yes, the same production company that rules the holiday TV schedule with an iron fist. Or an iron hoof, right? Back then, Rankin Bass was the only animation production company in the US that was making new animated specials and movies with any relative frequency. The majority of their animation work was outsourced to different studios in Japan to save money. However, Beagle was horrified as he had no interest in working with Rankin Bass, stating, quote, "I hated everything Rankin and Bass had ever done. Everything. Didn't like what they'd done to Tolkien. I hate Frost the Flippin' Snowman, let alone Rudolph the What's-It," end quote. Those are some spicy words. I actually checked this online, and yeah, a whopping 64%, or 23 out of 36 TV specials and films produced by Rankin Bass were some variant of holiday specials up until 1982. So yeah, I kind of get where he's coming from. But they were the only studio who was even willing to take on their pitch. Beagle was deeply concerned he'd be making a huge mistake. He was convinced that Rankin Bass wouldn't be able to adapt to the structure of his screenplay or meet the emotional demands of the story, explaining, quote, "I remember screaming, 'Why didn't you just go all the way and sell it to Hanna-Barbera?' And Michael, the producer, looked immensely sad and said, 'They were next,' end quote." God damn. Sure, it wasn't an ideal situation, but they saw the writing on the wall. It was now or never. With that, in June of 1979, Beagle and Walker made the most of the lean budget that they were offered. They originally asked for a $5 million budget, but ultimately made the entire production for around $3.5 million. That equals out to a little under $12 million today. But man, did they make it work for them. Everybody was on their A-game working on this movie. Rankin Bass somehow got all of their first choices for voice actors by contacting their extensive network of actors from New York and LA, including Mia Farrow as a unicorn and Alan Arkin as Schmendrick. Like they somehow managed to get post-Sweeney Todd but pre-Murder, She Wrote Angela Lansbury on speed dial to play Mommy Fortuna. And personally, I think that's awesome. I don't know how they made that magic happen, but we are all better off for it. Both Jeff Bridges and Christopher Lee adored the novel and begged Rankin Bass to be included within the cast. Jeff Bridges even volunteered to perform as the prince for free. And total badass Christopher Lee was such a huge fan that he brought his own dog-eared copy of the book to the audition for King Haggard. He constantly wanted Peter's approval for his line reading and was so dedicated to the project that he dubbed his own lines for the German release.
Da sind sie. Da sind sie. Sie gehören mir. Mir allein.
Damn, Christopher, you're so cool. With a very talented crew, and by following Beagle's screenplay to the letter, the production gradually took shape. What would make it truly stand out from the competition was a strong attention to detail in the production designs. The actual animation was done by Topcraft, a Japanese production company made up of former Toei artists. They had been working with Rankin Bass as contract workers since the mid-1970s. And make no mistake, the lead character designers for the film were Lester Abrams at Rankin Bass, and I'm gonna try and not butcher the name here, Sugiyuki Kubo at Topcraft, who adapted the designs to be more animator-friendly. Kubo had been working off and on for Rankin Bass since 1969, working in the animation department for Frosty the Snowman while also providing the animation character design for The Hobbit and the original Thundercats series.
Back! Away with you, you nasty, rotten thing!
The creature and human design is quite striking in Kubo's original concept art. I absolutely love the original designs for the bull and the unicorn. They would look so sick airbrushed on the side of a van. Lady Amalthea's design looks like she came straight out of Sailor Moon with her violet eyes and flowy hair. But we still get some of the classic Rankin Bass visuals in the look of the humans, especially with both Schmendrick and Molly. The ethereal nature of the magical creatures have a stark contrast to the more earthy, natural look of the human characters, and that works really well. The background designs were inspired by the work of Danish illustrator named Kjell Nielsen, best known for his fairy tale illustrations and his concept work for the Night on Bald Mountain sequence from Fantasia. Looking at both of them side by side, yeah, there are definitely some similarities here, right down to the weird harpy boobs out of nowhere. Inexplicably, the soundtrack has never been formally released in the US, like ever. I'm not kidding. The soundtrack performed by America the Band and written by an American musician was never actually released in America. Incredible. Now, it did really well in Europe, though, peaking on the German charts at number 38, which, hey, it's kind of fun, I guess. Anyway, once the movie was finished, Beagle did eventually admit he was wrong, as the final film was so much better than he could have imagined. He gave Rankin Bass credit where credit was due, stating, quote, "I don't know how to react. I was so braced for the worst that I couldn't take in the fact that it was actually a good film. It took several viewings before it finally hit me that they absolutely transcended themselves." End quote. At the time of The Last Unicorn's release, there was a glowing review of the film in the New York Times by writer Janet Maslin, who said, quote, "The Last Unicorn is an unusual children's film in many respects, the chief one being that it's unusually good. This animated fable also features a cast that would do any live-action film proud, a visual style noticeably different from that of other children's fare, and a story filled with genuine sweetness and mystery. And no one of any age will be immune to the sentiment of the film's final moments, which really are, unexpectedly, touching and memorable." End quote. Critics of the era seem to be able to appreciate The Last Unicorn for what it was, a surprisingly dark film from a production company best known for their holiday fare. But what about the audience? Did they like it too? Well, that was a little more complicated. There was a huge amount of competition in theaters when The Last Unicorn debuted on November 19th, 1982, a week before Thanksgiving in the US. But the movie that really stole its thunder was a re-release of The Empire Strikes Back. Things were even tougher, as they had trouble actually acquiring a distributor that would give them the marketing push they needed to be successful. Rankin Bass were initially working with Universal Pictures under their Associated Film Distribution branch, but they got cold feet and dropped the movie at the very last minute. Running out of options, they ended up going with a small Utah-based company called Jensen Farley Pictures. However, that company folded shortly after the movie was released, when JFP filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Damn, these guys really don't get a break, huh? Talk about a string of bad luck. The Last Unicorn opened at number 6 and held that position for 3 weeks, but fell off the top 15 by the time its run ended at 7 weeks in theaters. Being produced for a budget of $3.5 million, it almost broke even, making around $6.4 million in total during its original theatrical run. Despite the struggles and issues the movies had, even Peter was surprised by the staying power of The Last Unicorn, stating, quote, "A couple of years ago, watching a standing room only audience react to the film at an anime convention, I found myself thinking, Christ, the bloody thing's a classic. And that's not a word I use lightly about anything, let alone my own stuff. Given the limitations of the original budget, it is unquestionably the best thing that Rankin Bass ever did. The fact that it still packs people in whenever we schedule a theater showing says a lot." End quote. Yeah, he's not wrong. Despite how it looks on the surface, The Last Unicorn is not this sugary sweet, low-stakes story for babies. It made a huge impact by subverting a lot of the tropes and expectations of fantasy films and stories up until that point. There were some added benefits for the crew too. Topcraft nailed down the production pipeline for making a movie and used those lessons to create their own feature films. In fact, their first venture into films after wrapping up on The Last Unicorn was a little movie called Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Yeah, you heard that right. Many members of Topcraft would later go on to form Studio Ghibli, with Miyazaki, Takahata, and Suzuki at the helm. Back in the US, Rankin Bass continued to make more TV specials well into the late 1980s, but pulled back noticeably with movies, with a 17-year gap between releases. Their follow-up film to Unicorn was an incredibly poorly received animated remake of The King and I, released on March 19th, 1999. Guys, do not check this one out. It is astonishingly bad, with a lot of racist caricatures, and deserves to be forgotten. Rankin Bass as a company has been fully defunct since December 17th, 2001, with many of the animators jumping ship over to DreamWorks. But things haven't been great for the author Peter S. Beagle. Much like in the story itself, a lot of nefarious people wanted to control and contain The Last Unicorn for their own monetary gain. And those issues, ironically, mostly stem from creative control and IP rights. The first was between him and Granada Media, his former distribution company for the DVD release of The Last Unicorn. Back when the original negotiations for the film were being made, Peter had signed on to work with ITC Entertainment, a British TV and film distribution company. Their deal was to set up to give Beagle 5% of the profits from the complete animated film, and 5% of the profits from any subsequent merchandising. However, once ITC was bought out by a bigger company called Granada Media International in 1999, they did not honor the terms of this agreement by withholding profits and royalties from him. To retaliate, Beagle posted about this on his website in 2006 by putting out a call to action to his fans for their support. And they showed up for him in droves, flooding Granada's website with emails to give him the royalties he had rightfully earned from the home media release. According to Beagle, Granada had a history of screwing over other writers out of their rights and royalties to their published works. A then employee of Granada gave him some off-the-record advice to help force the company to deal with the consequences.
Their understanding with any such project has been simply, we don't pay until it actually gets to a lawsuit.
Beagle eventually did reach a settlement deal with Granada, announcing it publicly at Otakon on July 29, 2011. But this issue led to another slow-burn court case, with Beagle suing his former business manager, Connor Cochran, for a reported total of $52 million. Now, that kind of figure seems pretty high, but considering the debacle involving Granada, it sounds like Beagle was trying to recoup the substantial losses of Cochran, who didn't seem to be advocating for his own client properly. According to Vice writer Beth Weingartner, Cochran had started working for Beagle in 2001. During this time, Peter was at a low point, struggling to get through a messy divorce, only making around $20,000 in royalties from his published works, and is over $200,000 in debt. Based on this PR Newswire article, Cochran was allegedly undermining Beagle's mental faculties to manipulate him into handing over monetary control of his IP, saying Peter was too far gone mentally to handle the ins and outs of further business deals. In reality, he was using Beagle's name, published works, and reputation as his own personal piggy bank by pocketing most of it in an elaborate sham company called Conlin Press. As quoted in the same article, Beagle stated how common this kind of financial abuse can be in the literary world. Quote, "I've known older people who were seriously abused, so I can understand on a bad day the self-doubt, the terror. Writers don't know how we do what we do. We don't know what it was that came and then left us. That makes it awfully easy for us to believe the doubt even when it shouldn't be there." End quote. The only genuinely helpful thing Connor seemed to do for Peter was show him how many longtime fans still cared about his work. People who thankfully recognized he was being exploited by his own manager. In my research, I found personal accounts from dozens of fans who had ordered a deluxe copy of The Last Unicorn or his other books, but never received them or got a refund. One person was so pissed off, they actually recorded the voicemail Connor left on their answering machine.
Hi Heather, this is Connor Cochran with Conlin Press. I just sent you an email that explains everything. You're going to get your refund and you're going to get your book. There's been a lot going on because of Peter's medical condition and the fallout from that.
Beagle finally sued Cochran in 2015, accusing him of severe misconduct as his manager, including fraud, financial elder abuse, slander, and breach of fiduciary duty. The legal battle for this case lasted 4 years, but ultimately, the judge ruled in favor of Beagle, awarding him $332,000 in damages. But this wasn't the happy ending Beagle was hoping for. In a classic cruel irony, Connor declared bankruptcy 16 hours before the case was finalized, releasing him of personal liability. Wow, what an absolute asshole.
You're a creep! Go away! We're having a good time until you showed up, jeepers!
Beagle never got the money he was rightfully owed back then. But ultimately, he finally got the full IP rights back to The Last Unicorn in February of 2021. It obviously wouldn't make up for all of the lost revenue over the years, but at the very least, he finally had his unicorn back where she belonged.
Oh, you stayed. You stayed.
In conclusion, during that whole ordeal and after it, there was some discussion on the potential of making a live-action CGI hybrid remake of The Last Unicorn. There were rumors of a reboot at the 2002 Cannes Film Festival, but due to the IP rights issues and Christopher Lee's passing in 2016, the project has been essentially canceled. There's still a fair amount of leftover production materials and a concept trailer thanks to the Lost Media Wiki. But as of now, nothing has been set in stone to revisit it just yet. However, there's still a chance that it could happen in the future. Before getting into this topic, I never would have guessed how complicated the history of this movie would be. But I guess in a lot of ways, it's kind of fitting. There was so much love and dedication that went into the creation of The Last Unicorn that makes me really respect that it even exists at all. Now, I wouldn't say it's a perfect film, but it's one that had miraculously survived a tremendous amount of hardship and grief to earn the reputation it has now. It's not the cleanly happy ending we've come to expect from a fairy tale these days, but I think that makes it all the more satisfying, rare, and memorable. But hey folks, those are just my thoughts. What did you all think? Tell me down below in the comments, and I'll see you all next time.